Let's take a look at Mars retrograde in Leo, opposite Pluto in Aquarius, through the 12 houses. Check out my recent videos on this topic to get a good ground in the essence of the signature. As I go through the 12 houses, I'm going to focus on three basic ideas. One, where there can be the temptation or the trap of pride, self-entitlement, self-importance. That Mars in Leo opposite Pluto in Aquarius can really reflect this trigger. Remember that Mars is always the trigger. It's where the activity is being instigated. So there's a lot of stimulation, inside and outside, activities, events, strong reactions to experience relative to wherever Mars is transiting. And then Pluto itself speaks at deeper psychological confrontation, where we're faced with our deepest psychological fears, our resistance to growth, the content that we're not even conscious of. So on that first level of pride and self-entitlement and self-righteousness, the issue here is there's something out there, person, people, that which is not me, that is imposing or threatening or trying to take away my own right to live, to be free, to actualize. So we can easily fall into a sort of righteous, warlike stance of I'm important and I'm going to win, I'm going to do whatever I want. So that's one attitude. The opposite is, in my view, really the other side of the coin. It's a lack of connection to one's will, a lack of connection to purpose, feeling disempowered, feeling stuck. So this is about feeling very weak, not connecting to any sense of personal importance, not having a relationship to where we can be making personal, thoughtful choices to further our own evolutionary work right now. So we're not making choices, we're not claiming our agency, we're not stepping into our own courage. And then the third dimension is really, what is the evolutionary meaning of this? This is about the courage and the confidence to actualize on a higher level of consciousness, to know ourselves and our power and our potential, not relative to changing the world out there, winning or fighting over or against something else, but to become more firmly committed to who we are created to be. What is my unique purpose and potential? What is a unique light that wants to shine and actualize right now in my life? That commitment becomes a bottom line, a focus, wherein all other dynamics, all other content then is met with that bottom line. And so that Pluto in Aquarius is an underlying objectivity. Don't attach to your stories and to all the ways in which the mind can create a perception of polarization and differentness. It does say, to be courage, you have to be willing to live your life without a story. Don't be so fixed on what it looks like, how it's supposed to go, how other people are supposed to feel about it. The confidence and the courage of this Mars in Leo is strengthened and is triggering the deeper evolutionary purpose of this Pluto in Aquarius by way of saying, we're not concerned with what it looks like. We're not looking on the outside to affirm a sense of importance and specialness. We're claiming and grounding ourselves in the truth of our own purpose. And where do we find our purpose? Like, where do we find that confidence and that courage and that energy, that stamina to go, to keep on going, even through hard times, even through obstacles, and to not be weighed down by fear, by anger, by victimization? Where do we find that? It comes because it's already here. It comes because your life, our lives are already relevant because we're here. And so the starting point is the commitment to that recognition and just the willingness to start, the willingness to go and to do, that Aquarius polarity says, don't get stuck in being hyper concerned with performance and, right? Don't be looking for validation. The whole dichotomy of that Leo-Aquarius is people might throw tomatoes or they might throw flowers. We find our purpose when we're no longer looking on the outside and we just acknowledge that we already have our purpose. Our purpose is who we are. There's a great David Goggins quote that I'm going to paraphrase, which is, he's that guy that will do these crazy big workouts every day. And people are like, are you training for a triathlon? Or he's like, I'm not training for something. There's no purpose for all of these workouts. There's not an objective, here's a thing that I'm trying to achieve in time and society and like a goal, but I am my own purpose. And I just love the energy of that. What does it take for us to show up with passion, with meaning, with a sense of commitment and devotion to our life? Usually we need some kind of external push. Say, here's something to work for, here's something to wake up for and to practice for. We have to be willing to just step into the field of our soul, the field of the unique role that we are all here to play in this world. And again, that Leo energy teaches, especially with Mars, life won't evolve, we won't move forward unless we're actively participating and are making ourselves, putting ourselves into the process, engaging consciously. Okay, so before I jump into our look through the horoscope, a couple announcements. As always, my Planet Square in the Node series is ongoing. You can jump in now. Our next class is on Saturn on January 7th, I believe. And you could jump into any individual class or enroll in the entire series. My upcoming training program will soon be open for enrollment. This will begin in March of 2025. And this is a program that takes us through a study of everything evolutionary astrology, taught through the lens of my own ongoing learning and realization from the very beginning. This is a live cohort, so we have weekly live classes. You can check this out and learn more below. I'm not yet opening enrollment, but if you would like to join the class and actually begin studying the content, you can enroll anytime in the self-study and then upgrade live when we actually begin. I offer sessions for individuals, couples, as well as long-term soul-to-soul companionship sessions. This is where I work with evolutionary astrology, reading your natal chart in service to your own soul growth and your own evolutionary growth. I take whatever questions and dynamics are brought forward and go inside to sort of join with you in holding that question. What's the healing potential here? What wants to be seen? I hold each individual in their higher potential to meet all dynamics of life as an opportunity for healing and evolution. You can check all of that out in the description below. Lastly, I often write articles in tandem with these videos. So if you'd like to receive these articles in your inbox, subscribe to that as well. Okay, let's jump into this. Mars retro in Leo in the 1st house, Pluto in Aquarius in the 7th house. This can be a very violent opposition relative to how other people's projections, needs, ideas, issues are getting in your way, crimping on your style. The arrogant and the self-righteousness here is to become defensive relative to seeing other people as a threat. Otherwise, there can be a sense of, I'm stuck, I can't make my own choices because I'm entrapped, I'm stuck relative to this Aquarius 7th house. I'm needing to be all of these things that isn't really true to who I am, but I don't know how to individuate and claim my own purpose. The teaching is claim your own purpose. Mars and Leo in the 1st, you have a path to walk, and it doesn't matter what other people think of you. The deeper evolutionary growth of Pluto in Aquarius in the 7th is to detach and liberate your mind from all lower ideas of relationship. What is it like to free other people from your need for them to be a certain way? I need you to treat me a certain way. I need you to act towards me in a certain way. I need you to behave towards me in a certain way. What if they don't? What if they just are who they are? Only when we really claim our individual purpose and move into our potential do we actually find that objectivity of, oh yeah, you're just you, and I'm only going to fixate on a story of you if it actually serves to keep me disempowered. If I want to be empowered, I'm not going to hold on to that stuff. I'm not going to make things so personal because I care so much about life and living. So I'm going to free you up and come back to my path. And this then allows for a deeper threshold of relationship and possibilities to even emerge. How do we really give and share and relate to one another when we don't know that we're free to just be ourselves and walk our path and make our own choices in life? Mars retrograde in Leo in the 2nd house, opposite Pluto in Aquarius in the 8th. The pride here can be an issue of self-entitlement and self-interest, exclusive self-interest. I don't care. I'm going to take what I want, and it doesn't matter how that affects you. Imagine within the context of a business relationship or a sexual intimate relationship or where there's a deep emotional bonding. You can have this attitude of, I'm only concerned with what I get. It doesn't matter what you get. And so any actions are justified as long as it makes me feel better. And that can be further intensified. Remember this Mars dynamic. There's always going to be a justification for why the other isn't worth the same dignity as our own selves. So, well, you're not safe, or you've hurt me, I can't really trust you. And that Pluto dynamic here in the 8th can really bring up strong issues of distrust. And the Aquarius is these subconscious memories and imprints of, yeah, last time I opened up or I trusted, I was betrayed. So we project these dynamics of distrust that actually keeps us from really opening and sharing with others. So yeah, the only answer is that I'm going to pridefully focus only on myself. Or the other dynamic is a lack of any kind of self-love and self-care or self-intimacy. I'm not actually taking care of my own basic needs. I'm not valuing my own life, and I'm allowing myself to get stuck in these dynamics that are holding up my life force energy. Again, these can be strong emotional bonds, sexual bonds, business bonds, financial bonds, where we're lacking in the will and the determination to make sure that we're tending to our own garden. When we become so entangled in that which we're sharing with others, and it's like this attachment, we get sucked into these psychological dependencies and addictions, and these can be very abusive dynamics. These can be a lot of giving power away because we don't feel that we're whole enough or secure enough or strong enough or capable or sourced enough on our own. So Mars in Leo in the 2nd emphasizes, and this is a positive aspect, have the confidence and the self-respect to say, I deserve to be here. I have a body. I have survival needs. What can I do to really nurture and sustain the value and meaning of my own personal life? This ground of tending to my own life, tending to my own value, says I need to make money. I need to make sure that I feel good about the things that I have and how I'm living. We bring that into the field of complexity of that Aquarius in the 8th house. And we recognize that only when we are strong enough to make the decisions for ourselves and say, oh, I need this, I need to give myself this, and sustain and basically protect our own basic survival needs, and to protect our own dignity and value, are we actually able to let go of ourselves more deeply and trust others? Similar to that 7th house, 1st house dynamic, we can bring a lot of distrust and projections and fears of intimacy, fear of sharing, fear of really bringing ourselves into the field of others, if we don't know that we can really be stable and grounded from within ourselves. So imagine you're like an artist and you're not spending time with your art. Relative to Mars, you're not making choices to say, this is what I need to do. We can then become very dissociative and just kind of coast through life without really feeling any joy. So that Mars emphasizes here, claim a deeper threshold of joy and permission and self-entitlement to feel good, but do it in a way with respect to the fact that this is never about hiding and isolating yourself from the complexity of the world. Show up in the complexity of relationship, of life, of business, of all the 8th house dimensions that exist out there with a ground of self-value. So you can meet it and not lose yourself in the process. One more thought on this. We can really be unconcerned with that 8th house fear of, I'm going to be betrayed or I'm going to be hurt or I can't trust, when we know that we're grounded in our own sovereignty. And that's where we can do that deeper Pluto work of letting go of the attachments, the fears, the compulsions, the obsessions. I might lose this. I don't know what people are going to do. I can't control people's behaviors. I can't do enough to get underneath other psychologies. But if I'm in my sovereign agency and I'm grounded in my own dignity, I don't have to worry about that. And so we can embrace the comings and the goings, what comes to come and what goes to go, and not be afraid, not be in fear. Mars retrograde in Leo in the 3rd house, opposite Pluto and Aquarius in the 9th. We have issues here with the group mind, belief systems that are shared by a group of people. And this could be a particular political narrative or social narrative relative to your culture, your society, or a political group or a religious group. That Leo in the 3rd house says, but what's your voice? Open your mind and actually open to finding different angles, different perspectives, different views that further expresses your unique way of seeing and thinking about life. This risks the possibility of pushing up against being misunderstood, not being believed, or other people saying you're wrong, you got it all wrong. So on the one hand, this can be, I'm just going to say whatever I want to say and step on my little platform and pronounce my, perspective and criticize and shoot down every argument and point out its logical fallacies. because there's a sort of pride in that Leo in the third house to say, here I am, listen to me. What I have to say is important, but we can't make other people listen, especially if we're in a defensive place where we're constantly fighting against or speaking against something that other people are believing in. The other dimension is, I don't want to not belong. I'm afraid of being an outsider, so I'm not going to speak up. I'm not going to express my voice. I'm going to, just make sure whatever I'm doing doesn't push up against the grain too much. But then we're not creatively actualizing. We're not connected to our own unique intelligence and how we're designed to bring forward a unique perspective that can only come from us. So the confidence here is to express your voice and just to not be concerned with what it looks like, with what other people think of it. To express the unique brilliance and perspective and angle that only you are able to access because your mind is open enough to not get stuck in any strong fixed narrative. And it's okay if people don't understand you. It's okay if people are like, wow, you're the next leader of the next free thinking movement. It's okay if none of that happens or if all of that happens. Stay true to the present moment, cutting edge of, this is what I'm here to say, and let all the cards fall where they may. A big teaching in general with this Pluto polarity is, as a core, just being unconcerned with gain or loss. Not worrying about what happens out there, but being a true leader to our own soul path. We can then trust that everything coalesces exactly as it is meant to around our clarity of alignment. Mars retrograde in Leo in the 4th house, opposite Pluto in Aquarius in the 10th. This can be like a child that is unaware that their personal emotional reality is not the only one. Aquarius 10th says we're in a world full of other people with walks of life, other experiences, and we can't just focus exclusively on what's immediately important to us. So the pride and the self-entitlement can be whatever insecurity I'm feeling, wherever I am emotionally dysregulated or not grounded in my own being. I'm going to entitle myself to make my present moment sense of what's important and real the most important thing, to take up all the space. And again, that's like very good for a child that needs to know that there's a ground of clarity and detachment from the parental figures to hold space for them to be self-focused, which they need to be. The issue can be a whole lot of unresolved and repressed emotions now coming up to the surface, and we can feel like our deeper security needs aren't being met. We may feel pressured or stressed or judged by life. And that 4th house is, I just got to make sure I'm living and I'm expressing myself, and I have all these unresolved emotions and fears and needs, and maybe we need to be held, maybe we need more rest, maybe we need a vacation, right? But if we don't know that we can be making positive, loving, healthy choices, there's a sort of immaturity that can come up right here that directs all of the attention towards ourselves and creates a lot of unresolved issues in terms of like our human responsibilities and relationships in the world out there. The other dynamic is like this little inner child that's not getting any attention. You have the stress and the responsibilities of being an adult, and there are things to do. And we can sort of dissociate Aquarius in the 10th and just kind of coast along. And what happens is that Mars and Leo in the 4th needs to play. Are you getting enough play? Are you giving attention to that part of your being that needs to feel like you're loved and you're cared for and you're celebrated, and you can like really enjoy getting to know who you are? So the nourishment and the rest and the play all come together here. This is the confidence to say, I'm going to feel at home and I'm going to bring some joy into my life. The Leo 4th house here also says, what's the point of living? Like, what's life for? If we're just tending to who we're supposed to be in the world and focusing on our responsibilities, we can lose touch with where the existential womb space of life is holding us, nurturing us, caring for us to develop confidence in our own being. If we have our own children, we can really understand the importance of engaging, playing, being present with our own kids. And the stress here can be, how can I be present with that Pluto and Aquarius in the 10th and the demands of who I'm supposed to be? So the confidence is say, I'm going to create my own life where that which is important is being tended to and cared for, and that's going to push up against wherever I'm losing my power to the roles and authority structures that are actually taking away my own life force. So the confidence and the self-entitlement to be at home and to live a meaningful and joyful and playful life where you are, where you live, with whom you are living with. And one more dynamic of this is the Mars polarity to Pluto in Aquarius in the 10th, which really emphasizes, in order to feel that this human life that we're living is conducive to true liberation and awakening, we have to be able to access the part of ourselves that feels alienated, that feels like it doesn't belong, or that feels like it just needs to go along with the flow, but it can't actually be cared for. So there's a radical stance of saying, I'm going to care for every part of my being, and as that is expressed fractally as well on the outside. Because that's a demonstration of me saying, I can live this human life and actually evolve. This template is right, it's conducive, it's designed for my own awakening. Mars in Leo retrograde in the 5th house, opposite Pluto in Aquarius in the 11th. This emphasizes the nature of these very archetypes in the first place. The key here is to recognize you have an individual purpose and you are important. And your importance isn't defined by any kind of comparative quality. It's not because people think you're beautiful or special. It's not because you get a bunch of likes or people agree with your message. It's interesting. I was listening to a particular social media influencer type person who said, the way he framed it, a man's life doesn't truly begin until he's been canceled. And I understand what he's saying, because it's sort of eliciting that Mars and Leo energy of you have to have the courage to stand in your truth and your purpose and be seen and not necessarily be liked. But I can also see how that notion can easily become a sort of, I don't care what you think, right? Screw you. I'm just going to be myself, right? And that's sort of flipping a little bit into, and I'm not saying that's where he was going, but that attitude, the thought of that attitude arose for me. You know, it can be very easy to fall into a sort of pride. Yeah, I don't care what they think. I want to be I want other people to be triggered by me, because there's a sort of, I got to make sure I'm important. So all the different ways in which pride and self-importance can become out of balance and sort of take over here relative to that distrust. Yeah, those people, they are not like me. I can't accept them. They can't accept me. We don't belong. When that attitude becomes so ingrained within one's consciousness, it can easily slip into, I can do anything, it doesn't matter, because haters will hate me anyway. So I think it's really important that we understand the confidence of Mars and Leo in the 5th is to open our heart to share generously from our strength. And the moment we start joining a perception of war or differentness is where we're kind of slipping into a sort of pridefulness. Now, the other extreme is, I'm so shy. You know, people don't often speak enough about how vulnerable Leo is, because there can be a deep shyness in the Leo archetype. It's vulnerable. You're being seen. Sometimes you're expressing things that can feel really personal or, you know, deeply intimate to one's being, and you're putting it out there. And you may not do it perfectly. That's where Leo moves into Virgo, right? It's like there's a lot of vulnerability. And so to kind of overcome that fear of public opinion and what others think can be a very tender and vulnerable process. So to just do that, and to not be afraid of that, you know, like, I'm so shy, I'm weak, they're going to think. So there might be a strengthening of the courage to just be yourself. And that's the bottom line. This is about the courage to be yourself. So that polarity, Pluto and Aquarius in the 11th, you can be what you are and not have to think about it. But you're going to be thinking a lot about it if you're suppressing this call towards confidence and action right now in the ways that your soul is called into. Mars retrograde in Leo in the 6th, opposite Pluto and Aquarius in the 12th. The issue here is there can be a very hyper, self-aware, and intricate, detail-focused attention on everything related to oneself. How am I performing? How good was that? Did I make a mistake? Can I lose some more weight? Can I present that better? So we can be over-editing ourselves and be hyperly, subjectively self-focused to the point where we're not bringing forward our own creative purpose. So on the level of lacking in confidence and being afraid of, you know, stepping into one's agency, there can be too much self-criticism. And relative to Pluto Aquarius in the 12th house, there's like that greater field of let go. This world's an illusion. Like, this is not literal. And all the things that you're doing, whatever project or performance or skill set or talents or work trade that you're cultivating, whatever that Leo in the 6th is expressing as, it's not as important as you think it is on its own. It's the vehicle, it's the instrument, it's the karma yoga, it's the way that you become a vessel to bring forward more healing and more correction and make things work better and to improve. In that sense, you have an inspiration, you have a gift to be developing here. But you have to have confidence in that gift and not be so critical of yourself. On the level of pride, one thing that we can do with a sixth house energetic is become so focused on where we're not where we want to be. We feel an internal deficiency. And Jeff Green beautifully taught either that internal deficiency is directed inward towards my life is screwed up and it's my fault, there's something wrong with me, which is masochism, or my life is screwed up and it's your fault, it's because of you, which is sadism, right? With the latter, then we're going to see if you're the problem, I'm going to project my own internal deficiency and want you to suffer. So my life can be a mess. Everything's scattered all over the place. I'm not accomplishing anything. I have a whole bunch of unresolved creative potential, and it's always someone else's fault. And we're going to see that Aquarius polarity as the chaos of life. Whatever it is, society, other people, my life conditions, how I was raised, there's going to be some space where we can project onto the infinite field of existence whatever is sustaining our sense of victimization and smallness. Because that Leo in the sixth house can then be in a state of resistance to really claiming, I have work to do. I have to clean up. I have to claim confidence in my own value and my own dignity and say there's work for me to do. I've neglected it. I've denied it. But no one's going to do it for me. And continuing to criticize the world out there isn't actually going to get the job done. So this can have the energy of getting back on your throne. As messy as things have been, and there can really be a strong sense of having been hurt, right? Like that whole, my life's messed up, I feel far from the glory that I should be in because there's been these horrible crises that have happened that I didn't cause, right? That can feel very true in our actual experience. And so that 12th house is like, I have no control over anything here. There's humility in just starting, getting started. Otherwise, everything else becomes a point of procrastination where we're doing everything that we can possibly do to stay away from the truth of our own calling. So Leo in the sixth says, there's work for you to do, but it requires the command and the clarity of mind of a king and queen. It requires a clarity of mind of someone that says, I honor that my role is valuable. And I'm not concerned with outcome, but I'm not going to stay in a resentment or in anything that nurtures procrastination to keep myself from doing this work. So the humility of just starting, and that 12th house polarity does really teach with Aquarius, don't hyper-focus on all the details. Don't concern with what it looks like. Don't get over-concerned with it because the story's much bigger than you, right? It's so much greater than any of us understand. We just have to play our part and do the next thing that comes after. Mars retrograde in Leo in the 7th house opposite Pluto and Aquarius in the 1st house. The issue here is where we can enter into a relationship and we're overly concerned with making sure we're liked, we're wanted, we're celebrated, we're appreciated. What that does is it ends up creating a situation where we're kind of stuck in the like, you're so awesome, you're so cool, oh my God, you're so great. And we kind of expect that feedback. That Pluto and Aquarius in the 1st house doesn't want that. That Pluto and Aquarius is a streamline towards liberation and freedom. I have to have the freedom to walk my path and break out of anything that's keeping me in the past or afraid of the future. The next moment, the threshold of what's next doesn't have any precedent. There's nothing that I can take with me to understand this next moment. I have to be free within my own soul. And so that Mars and Leo is bringing up, where am I attached to? Where am I overly concerned with getting that approval from others? And so the pride can be, I need you to treat me this way, or I need to feel special by you, or I can't believe you didn't say hello to me when you walked in, and all these ways in which we bring our own self-entitlement into relationship. The other extreme of that can be the codependency of, I just gotta make sure I'm liked and wanted and celebrated and appreciated and that what I'm doing is seen and valued. But that keeps us stuck and out of our own freedom. So the Mars in Leo in the 7th is that courage and the confidence to be radically intimate and present and clear and to be a leader of your own soul within your relationships. But that means pushing beyond, resisting the temptation for that codependency, and that feeding into that need to validate, that need for specialness. And of course, in Miracle, there's a whole lot of teachings on the special relationship. And that really can be expressed through many archetypes. It's such a universal concept. But with this, it's like I'm using relationship as a means to affirm my specialness, which means I don't know my specialness. So if the form of the relationship changes or a person acts or behaves differently, I'm not going to feel important anymore. Thus, there's really no relationship, if you think about it, because it's designed to keep our self-image sustained through a particular form of control. And so allowing ourselves to respect and hear and listen to another, but honoring that we need to make choices and respect that each person has their own soul path, by listening truly and being open to expressing your needs, listening to another, but staying out of any kind of entanglement and confusion, we allow all relationships to be a journey of giving and sharing of what's truly relevant and meaningful, and it can move forward in healing in good ways. And then we can feel that freedom to know this life is promising something new, and I'm here to do it, to go somewhere that I've never been before. If you're in the role of a counselor or healer, I think this Mars in the 7th can also further be emphasizing, look at all the ways in which roles and expectations might be holding up your own energy. The key here is to be able to strip away what are the ways in which I'm relating that is actually still trying to appease others. Like there can be a buildup of anger relative to that Pluto in the 1st. It's like the suppressed earthquake that's wanting to like come out. If we're sort of stuck in, I gotta be a people pleaser, I gotta make sure everyone feels good, I gotta make sure everyone likes me. So to be stronger, it's not about, I'm gonna offend you. We only want to offend and hurt other people when we become prideful because we don't think they are who we wanted them to be, and then we're gonna get back at them, which is the shadow of the signature. So it's not about that, but it is being okay with other people not getting all of their needs met through us. The key is to keep our heart open, stay present, stay in a place of authenticity and relating and true listening, but be in fidelity to our own soul path at the same time. Mars retrograde in Leo in the 8th house, opposite Pluto in Aquarius in the 2nd. The issue here can be all of the deeper psychological entanglements that happen when our own sense of importance and value and dignity gets so intertangled with another person. We have a very heightened archetype with this signature of like all the ways in which we can be dishonest with each other, the ways in which we can subtly, psychologically, unaware or not, use each other in order to feel a certain way, where we could enter into relationships where we really give our power away because we're so stuck in the entrapment or the entanglement. So in one extreme, one person can be sort of that Leonian, I'm important, and the other person can be sort of the I'm not important energy. The I'm not important is feeding the important one who is entitled to get what they want, to do whatever they want to do. And as long as they maintain that bond, everyone feels okay. The one that is important is needing someone below them so they can be asserting their own power. There can be a lot of power over, power under, a lot of dynamics of victimization. And so this can then bring us towards a lot of jadedness and distrust. I'm not going to open my heart. I'm not going to share. I'm not going to trust. I don't want to be taken advantage of. That shyness of Leo that I was speaking about with the 5th house can really be intense here. If I open, if I'm really vulnerable, if I'm naked, if I bring myself forward, I'm going to be rejected. The most deepest, intimate, vulnerable part of me isn't going to be actually seen. I'm going to be desecrated. I'm going to be humiliated. I'm going to be left out there like a lonely cat starving on the street that no one wanted. And that can be the imprinting here. The teaching with Mars and Leo in the 8th house, if we think of it in terms of pride, there can be a strong sense of victimization, jealousy, avenge. Anything can be justified to get back at that person that hurt me. This is far beyond the 7th house, right? Which is dealing with issues of balance and equality and exchange and listening and harmony. In the 8th house, if we've been wronged, it can justify in our minds, oh, I'll do anything to get back at that person, to the unthinkable. That Aquarius Pluto in the 2nd house is a bottom line ground in stability. I am who I am self-sufficient, and I have what I need in this moment according to my own vibration. Everything's already as it should be, but we're instigated, okay? And that instigation of Mars and Leo in the 8th house can easily take us out of that inner stability and then trigger us to get psychologically entangled and involved in all kinds of crazy human dramas. So the other end of that is then we're stuck in other people's dramas or the inability to make choices, right? We're stuck and entangled in an addiction and a dynamic, and we don't know how to get out of it. The Pluto in Aquarius, the underlying dynamic here is an awakening to the self-sufficiency that exists within the soul in this moment itself, an underlying truth, a statement of fact of your existing wholeness. To know that that is then demonstrated in that Mars energy here, in the ability to make choices, because we don't need to hold on to what is stagnant. We don't need to sustain and continue to feed patterns of addiction and manipulation and being manipulated in order to maintain whatever we perceive as security. The key, however, and this is what I really want to emphasize for anyone with a signature, is to not get stuck in a very seemingly justifiable sense of, well, you're not worth it. I'm going to do that Mars energy of letting go and moving on. That creates its own karma. This is not about doubling down on pride. It is about the ability to make positive and healthy changes that are rooted in underlying self-respect. When pride is involved, we're not truly moving on. We're just affirming a false sense of importance. To be able to ground ourselves fundamentally in a soul level attention on what does it look like to honor the eternity of my own soul. We live forever as a soul. We are eternal beings. And yet we come into time experience, and for a time, and for a time alone, we kind of obstruct that sense of eternity because we get stuck in these things for a while. We swirl in these relationship dynamics and patterns and addictions for a while. And so we get there and it kind of brings up the next layer of healing, and then we release it and we can access a little more of that, oh, I'm actually a free being. So that's the agency that I'm truly pointing to here. And in that sense, we can also fully share. We can trust others. We can open our hearts. We can be vulnerable because we recognize no one can take our power from us or even give us our power. We can enter into a relationship as the possibility of deeper soulful exchange, deeper possibility of growth, and open up all kinds of creative projects. This can be a business project or all kinds of meaningful collaborations. The key is to recognize that our own power comes from our soul, not from the comings and the goings of what other people do or don't do. Mars retrograde in Leo in the 9th, opposite Pluto in Aquarius in the 3rd house. The issue here is I need to be believed, I need to be understood, I need to be right. Here I am speaking my truth, living my truth, sharing my teachings, whatever it is that I think is important or true, whatever understanding I'm currently working with. And I need to convince and convert other people. Relative to Pluto and Aquarius in the 3rd, of course, we're all going to have different angles and perspectives. The mass of humanity and the total collectivity of all of our thoughts are going to paint a very diverse picture where one story, one dialogue, one facet of reality is going to be understood from zillions of different angles. And any kind of dogmatism or conclusivity can always be countered with, yeah, but what about this? What about that? So if we're becoming dogmatic because we're needing to be understood, because we're perceiving, oh, they're going to reject me, they're going to throw me down. If I say something that's out of the box, if I'm not fitting with the cultural narrative or the logical premises that other people have. An issue with Aquarius in the 3rd is we can have a whole bunch of disparate pieces of information that are streamed together, and then we can project a logical conclusion based on those pieces of information. Read a headline, some facts of news media. It's very easy to form conclusions that are actually just opinions or some pieces of data, but obviously not all of the data out there. And so we can feel really defensive. No one gets me and my cause and my truth and my teaching. So it can be your political stance, your religious views, your philosophical views. On the one hand, getting on the pedestal and declaring your truth vigilantly itself can be the justification for it is my divine right to protect my truth. And these are the actions that I am destined to take. And anything I do and say is justified because I am right. There can be an intense amount of self-righteousness in the signature. On the other hand, we can feel very, very afraid of being seen. We might be offering a personal truth, a unique insight into reality that by its very nature will actually open the doors. Like the truth in the ninth house should feel like we're opening the doors to more of life, as opposed to closing it with a very fixed dogma. That sense of spaciousness and freedom and expansiveness is a sign of truth, is a sign of freedom. That's what we want to experience ultimately in the ninth house. But, well, no one understands me, or everyone believes something else. So that pride can be very zealous and vigilant. But on the other hand, because I'm not going to be understood, I'm not going to share my truth. I'm not going to get up and actually speak for what I believe in or demonstrate my authentic being. And the authentic being might be a vision you have. Here's a thing that I want to create or do, or a place that I want to go, a new idea. We just want to fit into what everyone else in our circles and our groups and the people that we associate with. What are the okay things to talk about, as long as I don't push up against what everyone else wants me to believe? So clearly the confidence here is to be true to yourself. It's about authenticity. And authenticity, a sign of it, is never I need to prove something. It's never I need to convince other people of something. It's not concerned with being believed, and it's not concerned with getting converts. It's going to stand on its own. Like the nature of authenticity is always self-referential, in the sense that the taste of it, the feel of it, is the point. We're being authentic. We're sharing what's true for us, meaning authentic and sincere to our own path. There's space for ongoing growth, but we're not going to be defensive about it. But the courage is to stand in it. And that might mean there might be karmic elements that will arise that will be purifying you, like being misunderstood or other people either agreeing or disagreeing. The key is to stand in our own dignity and confidence and authentic knowing of the path for ourselves without any of that defensiveness. That's a sign of our authenticity. Mars retrograde in Leo in the 10th, opposite Pluto in Aquarius in the 4th. Think of Pluto and Aquarius in the 4th as the diversity of people that live in your metaphorical home. One person has gluten intolerance, one person's an early riser, one person is a late sleeper, one person wets their bed, one person wakes up in the middle of the night, one person has these emotional needs, one person has those emotional needs. This one goes to that school, and this one, everyone has these different realities, and the need for care and attention is directed in all these different directions to meet the whole ecosystem. Mars and Leo in the 10th house, on the one hand, is this courage and this clarity of leadership to hold down the structure, right? Being in that sovereign place of you're a parent, you're responsible, you're generous, and you're able to structure your life and your time to meet all of the needs. And yet, at the same time, the pressures of your own inner life. This could be reflected metaphorically in your family, in the emotional bonds around you, but also in your own internal relationship to yourself. There can be a lot of emotional repression leading towards, I can't deal with all of these different dimensions. I don't want to take my time. I don't want to go slow. I don't want to think about the effects that I'm having on other people or the parts of myself that I'm suppressing. I'm just going to plow through and push through. The pride here is, I'm the boss, I'm the leader, I'm going to do whatever I want to do, and I don't care what that means. Listen to me, it's asking for obedience. But then we alienate the more tender parts of our being and those around us that really need better leadership and better care. The pride of, I'm going to do whatever I want to do, is an authority issue. I'm important, what I want, my will is precedent. So the other end of that is, I'm overwhelmed by all the stress of my life. There's so much going on. Emotionally, I'm overwhelmed. And I'm never on time. I can't quite keep up to it. So I don't have that sense of leadership. I'm not defining my time and my boundaries and the clarity of my life purpose in an adequate way to meet the demands of my own life. The teaching here is to have confidence and courage in saying, I am the king, I am the queen, I am the ruler, I am the sovereign being whose sole responsibility is to define the parameters of my human life. What parameters and boundaries do I need to establish to be in my alignment? Often it's, when do I need to wake up to meet the demands of my day? What are boundaries and rules to hold? Remember, boundaries, it's always a great teaching when boundaries are for you. Boundaries say what you will and will not do. They're not really about other people. So a boundary is an internal decision for what you will and will not allow in your own personal experience, which really means it's more about tending to your own mind and where you're going to allow your thoughts to go. And these boundaries allow you to say, I have a purpose and I have things to do in life, and I can do it all. I'm not going to get stressed and weighed down by the demands or the pressures to be a certain way. There could also be that sense of, I'm overly concerned with being important and being respected and how I look, and because of that, I'm suppressing this creative impulse. Right? I'm supposed to be this kind of generous, open-hearted, giving, valiant, knight in shining armor type archetype. But I'm not actually allowing myself to follow my dreams. So I'm repressing a whole lot of my own inner being. So to have that clarity of self-discipline and self-courage to say, I'm going to use my time and structure it to bring forward and prioritize all of the responsibilities, which is like the responsibility for my soul path, to be prioritized, to bring that front and center. If there's an art project or a creative project or a thing you want to achieve or a course you want to take, that Mars in Leo says, value yourself and your time, because otherwise it can feel like you're overwhelmed and you're never really getting the attention and the support that you really need. And that will really lead to a hyper amount of stress. And the level of stress in the signature is quite immense because when we're not prioritizing our own creative developments and disciplining ourselves accordingly, there's always going to be some demand, often from the outside, redirecting our attention elsewhere. For myself, I don't have the signature, but I often come back to this, internal realization. Sometimes I wake up earlier than I want to because one of my girls will wake up and then I'll wake up with them, and that's how my morning will start. My preference is to wake up and have that solo time before I start my day, before I'm engaging with others, before I'm with my family, just to really anchor and quiet and do the things that I do. So one thing that I often come to is, well, if I want to make sure that happens, I have to intentionally wake up earlier and not just by chance hope that my daughters won't wake up before I do, right? And that's a level of claiming our own life, disciplining and affirming the structures and the boundaries and the parameters of our life in a way that will definitely help us to grow and strengthen in the ways that we need to. When you want to get somewhere on time, you're going to prioritize getting there on time. The things that we care about, we're going to make it work. There's really not a lot of limits in terms of what we can do with our life. It's a matter of determining ourselves and believing it's important enough to discipline the achievement of those things. It's really more a matter of what we believe is worth it than a matter of whether things are attainable or not. So the confidence and the self-leadership here is getting stronger, healthier, and more congruent, and to feel like I am actually tangibly, gradually, authentically moving towards my goals and living a more healthy life as a result. Mars retrograde in Leo in the 11th house, opposite Pluto and Aquarius in the 5th house. This speaks to, in actualizing ourselves and being who we are, we have to be okay with standing out. The social media influencer, the YouTuber, the creative, the artist, or the writer, it's easy for any otherwise known creative expression to become so fixed and stuck in like, this is the thing that I do. This is my social image. This is my internet avatar that people project and expect of me. And so then we end up becoming sort of entrapped and stuck by our own creative image. That Pluto in Aquarius in the 5th is this soul impulse, this underlying evolutionary need to liberate from any known expression of our own creative essence that's rooted in the past. What is the unique creative energy of our own soul right now? How does it want to come into fruition and express right now, not according to who we've been or any projection of what it should be? And this really brings in the social element, what other people expect of us. I'm going to be embarrassed if I do this or I express this, but what if we just do it? A big function of this Leo Aquarius energy, and you're not going to know this, we're not going to know this until we do it, right? A big function of it is do it. Then you'll understand it. You got to do it. You got to just like open the heart and step in and jump in. I mean, so much in life is like that, right? Like so much in life is just like jump into the present moment, spontaneity, self-emergent calling to actualize, to create. And then we notice what it looks like. Most of our really meaningful creative projects start that way. We're not trying to be anything or do anything. It just comes from this impulse that we're following, and we don't really know much about what it is other than we're just following it. To stay in that freedom and just kind of stay undefined means we're allowing ourselves to reinvent ourselves in the snap of a finger. We're not holding ourselves according to precedent or what the community or the world expects of us. The pride here in this situation could be getting off on being different. And this kind of being like a thorn in group continuity, right? I'm going to stand out. I don't want to conform. I don't want to fit in. I don't want to make myself what everyone else needs me to be. I'm going to make sure I'm different and internalize anything that I'm internalizing as like internalizing wherever I'm perceiving the external push to conform as an opportunity and an invitation to just rebel and reject that. So everything can become a don't limit me. I'm going to do whatever I want to do. But then we fall into this round of pushing up against a sort of respect of humanity. When claiming our own individuality and importance becomes a matter of getting off on, being radical and shocking other people, we can really alienate ourselves, push other people away, and really our hearts are closed. It doesn't actually express the greater potential of our creative genius. So on the other hand, if we're dissociating from it and we're just kind of going along, I don't want to do this, or I don't want to, I have the signature, and what's been really exciting for me, this is like always my story, my music. Yes, I'm growing in my own confidence as a teacher, as a creator, and that's important for me, learning to just bring forward more refined expression of my just being. But it's the music, and there's so much music in there. So I recently shared that I have a music channel, and I posted, a song, and it was just so liberating for me to let people know that I have a music channel. And for those that are like, yeah, I'm never going to get any followers because no one knows me, start somewhere. Like, my music channel has been around double or triple the amount of time that this channel's been around. And like, I have like 300 subscribers, and that actually only bumped recently because more people went to it, but it was like 200 something. Maybe it's still 200 something. I never tried to get subscribers. It was always just like an innocent shared music. And, there are dozens of songs that I haven't shared. But to just kind of go for things and not care about the feedback that we're getting, whether it's popular, but just to keep on doing it, for me, it's funny how it took a long time to even realize, because it's like that channel is just like an Ari Moshe Wolf channel. It's whatever it goes. It's mostly music, but there's also like, how to make chocolate and some things that I did in my DIY van build. To even realize, I can use this platform to share. It allowed more of me to open up, realizing music is such an important part of myself. I can begin to actualize more in that direction. And so we can just go. It doesn't matter what you're doing with your life. There's a starting point. And more often than not, trust me on this one, the starting point isn't something that is hard or difficult. It's usually the next step relative to a bunch of steps we've already taken. You might already have a channel. You might already have a small platform or an Instagram page, or you might already have a bunch of art canvases, or you were gifted some paintbrushes 10 years ago, or someone said, by the way, you can take this free class if you want to. There's usually something that's there, but we just haven't seen it because we haven't opened our heart to the greater expansive possibility of our lives. And so community and collaboration and other connections begin to emerge as we allow ourselves to just move more into more of what we are. And then again, it really doesn't matter what kind of feedback that we get, because a sign of the leadership and the clarity and the confidence and the courage to be more actualized with this opposition is the joy, and the sign, the proof itself is we love doing it. That's all. We love doing it. Mars retrograde in Leo in the 12th house, opposite Pluto and Aquarius in the 6th house. The existential dilemma is I'm either nothing or I'm everything. The struggle can be with, on the one hand, an inflated sense of self-importance, where we regard our own unique contribution, our own creativity, our own specialness as like larger than life. We kind of associate ourselves with God, with ultimate meaning. That can be a sandcastle that's quickly dissolved and kind of just broken apart when we realize we're not, and no one pays attention to the beautiful and awesome things that we're doing, or that which is really important and successful suddenly is no longer important, or all of our adorers and fans suddenly turn against us and we're canceled and no one likes us anymore. So there's a learning with this signature to recognize, Pluto and Aquarius in the sixth. Don't get lost in some idealistic notion of importance or unimportance. You're here to be an instrument of divine love and are here to perform miracles, to do something meaningful on behalf of all of us. And the key is it serving? Aquarius sixth house. Is it helping others? Is it in service and actually bringing meaning and value and uplifting and elevating the state of our lives together? The other extreme here is I'm small, I'm unimportant, I'm insignificant. Why would anyone listen to me? Or, why would I bother publishing this paper, or making this video, or doing this thing? I don't matter anyway. Or I always hear this, but there are already thousands of massage therapists or yoga teachers or astrologers. Why am I any different? This is the beautiful dichotomy of that 12th house. Meaning and importance isn't found in the world. It's not found in content. It's not found in a specific object focus. It's found within. It's found in the present moment, and how we allow ourselves to become in this moment an instrument for something greater than ourselves. The Leo here is the true essence of co-creatorship. We're willing to step forward and say, I claim the love that I am, the light that I am. I'm here to fulfill love's function, to act as me and through me. I'm available for this. And so we take these steps and we don't concern ourselves with what happens, the results of it, whether we become big and famous, or whether the next phase of our life is being a little more humble and seemingly smaller and unseen. The dichotomy of larger than life and no one notices me are two unimportant expressions of the 12th house, because those dynamics come and go. We have lifetimes where souls might play and move into that phase of fame and importance and being well known. But that says nothing about the power and the miracle potential of their lives relative to someone who's totally not seen and not very known or acting behind the scenes. So to just do your work and be an instrument without concern for what it looks like. Speaking a little more to the pride dynamic, we can feel disillusioned and even victimized. We're giving, we're doing all these good things, we're putting forth so much generosity. It's like, I'm putting forward all this content, I'm spending 30 hours editing my video, and I only have 3 subscribers, no one's watching it. I'm not going to try anymore. This really brings up this very strong 6th house, 12th house dichotomy that many of us can relate to. We can create an image in our mind of what's important, establish for ourselves the pathway and the work and the details to then develop in order to achieve that which is important. And then we have an expectation. I'm going to do all these things, create this quality product, and people will think that I'm great, or they'll love it, they'll get a lot of benefit from it, or they'll be inspired by it. And even when we might think it's not about us, but then we're disappointed when it just falls on deaf ears or it doesn't go anywhere in the world. And where we're invited here is to check our own projections of meaning. Who told you to spend 30 hours editing, and who told you that this is the results of it? We can easily create an expectation of what things will look like. I'm going to give and give and give, and then this is what's going to happen. So often we overgive, or we delude ourselves in taking on a role of savior or some kind of a greater, more important than we actually are concept, with this idealistic and naive expectation that it's going to have some kind of big influence. More often than not, the influences that we exert in life, they come through the innocence and the courageous purity of our actions to just show up and do our work. And that might mean, we're putting in preparation towards something. We're not belittling ourselves. We're not just going to be lazy about our efforts, but we're not going to make something more of it than it actually is. A lot of the dilemmas that we're working out here can be, reconciling with an internal sense of, but I'm not really important, so I'm going to compensate that unimportance with something that makes me feel important. And so that 6th house Aquarius is like, don't get too confused about it. Just do your work. right? Just do the thing. It's more important the energy of your intentions, the purity of how you're devoting and designating your work as being an instrument for something greater than the work itself, right? Beyond you, to work through you. That's what's more important. Otherwise, you're going to feel disillusioned and then even angry. Why care? What's the point of living life? Bad things happen to good people all the time. No one seems to care. I tried being good. I tried sharing love and light and sharing myself, but no one, right? So that disillusionment only points to where we got ourselves confused and trying to determine how it's supposed to go. It's not an indication that there's something to give up on, that the present moment and the truth of our soul and our greatness, the beauty that we actually hold inside, isn't for nothing. We just have to be open and humble to not make ourselves, it's an interesting thing, this idea of humility with the 12th house in Leo. Littleness has no place here, but this like delusional magnanimity and self-importance also has no place. The littleness is a confused misinterpretation of, by myself I can do nothing, right? Something greater than me is working through me. I'm just the instrument. And thus I have to respect and honor the dignity and power, meaning and importance of my role as an instrument of this infinite power. But if I make myself more than that, then I will inevitably get confused. The last thing that I'll say to the signature is, for many souls, this is an invitation, especially with that retrograde, to come out of hiding, right? If we've been like, where's my role? Where's my purpose? What's my thing? Consider where you may have been hiding, right? It's like actually taking yourself out of the greater plan, out of the greater picture. To come out of hiding might mean stepping into, I'm just going to share. I'm just going to allow myself to be a part of the story instead of just being a fly on the wall. And that might be scary. We might existentially be afraid of taking up too much space and hogging all of the attention, or what if it causes violence? What if I do something wrong? We have to allow ourselves to be a part of the picture so we can learn how to be co-creators. So for many souls, the courage and the trust and the bravery and the faith in something beyond ourselves, to just be a part of it and to devote our lives to something greater than ourselves, and to be willing to do what it takes to be an instrument for that, to get out of hiding. All right, everyone, and that concludes my look at this opposition through the 12 houses. Special thanks to JC, who actually commented yesterday, just last night, that she hopes that I would do a video on this polarity through the horoscope. I was thinking about it, but it wasn't totally committed, but her asking for it brought it forward. So ask, and you often, very often, will receive. Thank you all so much for listening.